More recruiting, basketball this time on Locked On Syracuse. Jason Jordan, the director of basketball recruiting, will join me right after this on Locked On Syracuse.
Are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Matt Bonaparte here with you on your Tuesday episode of Locked On Syracuse. Thanks for making it your first listen every day. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. And joining me on today's episode is Jason Jordan, the director of basketball recruiting at Sports Illustrated. Jason, thanks for being here. Appreciate you.
Hey, man, how are you? Glad to be here.
Good. Let's get right into what Syracuse basketball has been putting its fans through in terms of a recruiting class for 2023. First of all, the 2022 class, 6 guys come in. Boeheim calls it the greatest class of all time. I think you and I have talked about that on this show before. But the 2023 class right now is a barren wasteland. They extended offers to some of the best recruits in the country, got none of them. JP Estrella was like the only guy that, to be honest, I thought was going to come to Syracuse, and then right at the last second said, no, Tennessee's my place to be.
Okay.
And he ended up going elsewhere. But now the only guy that it seems that they have a chance with is William Patterson, a 7'2", 220-pound big man. Should Syracuse fans be worried that there's nobody in the class of 2023, or am I overreacting? That's what the fans of this podcast would love to hear if you told me I was overreacting.
Well, yeah. So because of the world we live in now with the transfer portal, you shouldn't be worried, right? Because if all you want is answers, then you're going to have you're going to have options with the answers, right? It's because that's the world we live in now, which is wild in and of itself, different topic. But that's alarming that you're not landing. And then this is why coaches like to go ahead and get things out of the way so fans don't panic, in January. And they're like, oh my God, we don't have any recruits. Everybody has a recruit in 23. I mean, you look on the board, everybody on the right side of every, national ranking is is the school's name right at this point.
Yeah.
For the senior class. So I get the panic, I get the worry, but the transfer portal is the saving grace, and obviously it's where Syracuse is turning their attention. Save, to your point, the big that they're still pursuing. So I mean, William Patterson, would he be a good piece? Sure, right? I mean, is he gonna come in to be the savior? No, but it's really clear, and what I've been told, back channel stuff, is that they're putting it all in the transfer portal.
Okay, so at least we have that coming from Syracuse's campus, that they're gonna just put it all in the transfer portal, and they haven't really made a transfer portal splash. I mean, Elijah Hughes was probably the last incredibly talented player that they got from the transfer portal, because otherwise it was Cole Swider last year, Monir Hema this year, and Symir Torrance last year. So other than that, it was Elijah Hughes. I mean, they have hit the transfer portal pretty hard. Andrew White, Wes Johnson, both guys from the portal. Obviously, it's different now where it's just free agency, so it's an entirely different landscape. But in that new, in these new days where we're all kind of trying or beginning to be forced to treat the transfer portal as a much more formidable kind of way to build your roster, they haven't really shown us much. So maybe this is the offseason where they go out and get the superstar.
Yeah, and then to be fair, it's only really the second year where the transfer portal has been like,
that's true.
The thing, right? So, and then they're adding 14 days. People forget that they're adding 14 days for kids to decide this year. So it's gonna grow by probably 500 plus, even than it was last year. So it's gonna be wild, crazy, insane. So there will be obviously more options.
Okay. Well, I also want to bring up the transfer portal as a potential con for Syracuse. As it's not, it shouldn't be such a worrying thing now that guys are. You should be expecting players to leave for the transfer portal from
Right.
every single team. It's just so
Absolutely.
much easier now, and guys will just make a snap decision instead of having to wait on it because you're gonna have to sit out a year. That's all gone. Now
Right.
guys can just play wherever they want. So a lot more are
Yep.
going to just leave for the portal.
Yeah.
But I feel like I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I feel like Syracuse has some of the most players leave from the portal or from their team to the portal from any other team. I mean, I feel like you brought in this 6-man class, and with Boeheim, you never know who's going to play, right? He hasn't
Right.
just established a rotation. It is, Malik Brown got 36 minutes last night. The game before, he got like 12. You don't know who's going to play. And I feel like that is an environment that kind of breeds for guys to leave for the portal. What do you think about that?
Yeah. No, I mean it's fair. And so this is why the aura and the back channel, not even back front channel, side channel conversations around Boeheim and Syracuse is that people feel like the game is kind of passing them by. And to your point with the despair, I've heard that all season. And just the disparity with minutes, people don't know what to expect. Um, that all makes sense. And yeah, that is the climate where people, and then you don't have success. You're not having success. So it's one thing if
Yeah.
it's working, right? Then we all got to shut up. But if it's not, then you open yourself up to all of these things. And then, obviously you're at the end of your rope. And yeah, it is absolutely the climate where there's a mass exodus for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's not exactly what anybody wanted to hear, but it's the truth. I'm telling
Yeah.
you. Okay. I mean, just going off of that for one quick second. I mean, it's honestly, this is the thing I've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks. Because they are losing games that they shouldn't lose, or they're playing
Right.
teams incredibly close, like that Louisville game where they won by just 1 point. They just lost to Virginia. They lost to Pitt in an ACC this year that is talented, probably more than people give it credit, I think. But it's still pretty top heavy. You still have a huge drop off in terms of the teams. But do you think a guy like Judah Mintz, who is getting his playing time and has been in the conversation of some of the best freshmen in the
Yeah.
country, but I don't think he's a one and done. I mean, he still can't
Right.
shoot a 3-pointer.
Right.
It kind of begs for him to come back to college, but I think a lot of people are worried that he would leave. What do you think about him? Do you think
I,
he'll jump for the portal? Do you think he'll stay a second year at the Cuse?
no, no, no. I don't see that. Most people that are unhappy. I mean, I'm just gonna be very honest with you. Most kids that are unhappy are usually unhappy with their lack of production. First, and I'm not saying Judah, but most kids by and large are, and I mean a lot. I mean, by majority, it's lack of production first, winning fifth. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
gotcha.
Just to be honest. So if he's obviously doing very well, like he's definitely one of the top freshmen in the country. Um, he's gonna be all right. He just wants some help, and I think as long as they're reassuring him that help is on the way, maybe via obviously, probably more than likely going to be via transfer portal. I think he'll be fine because if they're like, we need you, we're gonna ride your coattails, and obviously that's gonna have to be the sell for him. Um, it's tangible because it's like, hey, we did that this year, and we ain't lying.
Yeah.
It ain't, you know what's coming. Like where other guys, to your point, I don't know how many minutes I'm gonna play this. I played this amount. I played this amount. It's like Judah's like, you know what we're gonna do with you? Score. Score the ball, and it'll be expanded this year. So he's not. I wouldn't see him going anywhere.
Good news. Woohoo.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a quick break and then we will talk about potentially will Boeheim leaving have a huge effect on recruiting in the transfer portal and what Syracuse gets. But first, let me tell you about Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories, you got to try a Built Bar. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate, and they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. And we've been talking about ordering them online for years, but now you can go into your local Walmart or Sam's Club to get them. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. And if you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later. Okay, back here on Locked On Syracuse, Matt Bonaparte with Jason Jordan, the director of basketball recruiting at Sports Illustrated. Once again, we appreciate you being here. So let's talk about Boeheim and the elephant in the room, in that this could be his last season. We heard whispers about last year being his last season. I think a lot of people thought it would be because his sons were leaving, would have been a nice trot off into the sunset. But, I also could see maybe he didn't want to leave the team in a negative record, and he didn't want to leave them with no recruiting class or whatever. So he built it up. Maybe he goes for one hurrah afterwards, and that being this season. But I also don't know anything. So, but all I do know is that it's coming soon, whether we like it or not. And John Wildhack and Boeheim have told us that there is an ironclad plan in place, which is a good thing, I suppose, but also kind of, weird and ominous, because this is a program that is in danger of taking a huge step down once Boeheim leaves. Because as a person, you're obviously going to know a lot more about this than I do. But as a person who follows this team and thinks about what they could possibly be saying in those recruiting visits for the last 6 or so years, where there really hasn't been the success that there was in the early 2010s, I imagine they're saying, we got a Hall of Fame coach who's going to make you an NBA star. That's all I can imagine that they're saying. And without that, I don't know what they'll be. So what can Syracuse do to kind of pull a Duke and have that smooth transition like they had from Coach K to John Shire and still get top recruits? Because I do feel like Syracuse's recruiting has been on the rise for the last couple of years after it took a huge decline.
Yeah, I think, well, the good thing about, if and when that happens, let's say it happens this year, right? He decides to step off right off into the sunset, which, I've heard, to your point, I've heard that so many times I don't want to jump out the window and say, I think it's going to be this year, because I'm tired of looking stupid. But at the end of the day, the cloud would be gone, right? Other schools won't be able to use that against them. Like, it's like, oh yeah, no, but when he leaves, he's not going to be there. I'm telling you, right? And they do that, right?
I guess that's true, yeah.
So that'll be gone. We can't do that no more. So, and then it's going to be obviously younger. No offense, Jim. Obviously younger, more fresh. It'll be, a new day, a new era. Look, I mean, to your point about Duke, newer, fresher. Obviously, John Shire was Coach K's right-hand man. A lot of people think they know who's going to be the next successor there at Syracuse. So, with that cloud gone, it does open the floodgates to go like balls to the wall, all in recruiting. The message is very clear, and they'll have to stay on message with that. And then they're also, let's just be honest, I know fan base is probably frustrated, but you're selling a hell of a product. It's still Syracuse, that still rings out. I know this because when I talk to recruits, if I hear Syracuse, there is still a perk up. There is still like a, Coach Boeheim called, GMAC called. Yeah, it's like that. There's a different elevation in the top. These are different things I look for. So I know Syracuse is still a school that rings out for sure. So I don't think, it's not like, and I won't name another school, but it's not like you're selling, a lower tier school, and you're trying to, you're really trying to sell that. You're still playing the ACC. I don't think it'll be as big of a it'll be a big transition, because anytime a legend leaves, there's a big transition. But as far as selling them on coming to play here for this young, vibrant coach who's going to do things different, and play a different fun style that you like, young guy, because I'm young too, right? And I don't think it helps that you're selling that with Syracuse, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I don't know that the drop off will be, from a selling standpoint, I don't know that it'll be substantial. I mean, because now, I mean, to be honest, the assistants are the sellers now. Like Jim ain't texting nobody. So
yeah, he's not on those recruiting visits.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it's you see Jim when he come to his house for a barbecue in the summer, and he says, "Wow, this is going to be great."
Yeah.
But hey, you mentioned, Coach K handed it off to John Shire, his right-hand man. That could very well be the case with Boeheim handing off to either of his two right-hand men, which are Jerry McNamara or Adrian Autry. I think that the court of public opinion has kind of favored GMAC, but I'm not entirely sure. Do you think one of those guys is a better option than the other recruiting-wise?
It's tough. I hear their name a lot. I mean, I think most people believe it's GMAC, to your point. And I think that's for that reason, I probably would slide there. Just because that's what people are expecting, and so and I know people love him. I know that the kids love him, the recruits love him.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Elliot Cadeau was a big target for Syracuse recently. He kind of fell off Syracuse fell out of a chance with him down the end there. But then it came out that Adam Weitzman, Syracuse's big booster, had offered his $1 million prize as an NIL deal to Cadeau. So I, for one, was incredibly interested because this would have been the first time that I watched a recruit pick a school knowing that he had $1 million on the line. He had $1 million on the line if he picked Syracuse, and he turned it down, went to UNC, which, if I had to assume, there's probably somebody at UNC who's offering that same deal, maybe more. But what do you think about that? Do you think Syracuse gets recruits thanks to Adam Weitzman's $1 million?
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah, absolutely. He turned it down. The next guy won't. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, $1 million's still $1 million. And I mean, I don't know. He's only playing now. Ellie is different. Ellie's not going to need $1 million in 9 months after he gets to school. He's not. He's gone, right? And everybody knows that. He's very open about that. So they think long term. And then it's like, if I come to Carolina, I'll have this stuff in place, and we'll win. I think these are the kids. I think we'll win because we'll have these things in place and da da da. But if I go somewhere where I don't have everything in place, and there's a lot of, like, Hubert's not going anywhere, right?
Yeah.
But Jim Boeheim might be, right? He might not be there when it's a lot of uncertainty. So too much uncertainty. I'm not gonna hurt my draft stock. I got to think big picture here. And so a guy like Elliott is 100% big picture thinker. So there are different nuances that go into a guy like him. Sure. Whereas the next guy, and then if the things are in place, like if the cloud is gone and we know who's next, it's easier to sell that $1 million. Easy.
Gotcha. Yeah. Something I'm super curious about regarding that $1 million is, and that I was super curious about right off the bat when the news came out that was something he was doing, is, obviously we know that it's a very, NIL and recruiting, it's super, it's like a minefield in terms of NCAA violations, and the coaches can't talk to Weitzman about who he's going to offer the money to, obviously, like that would be a violation. So how does that work? Like, how does he know? Like, is he just like on the offers page and he's like, I'll pick that guy? Like, what is he doing?
Yeah, because okay. Let me see how I can answer this and be nice. He doesn't. Yeah, you're right. He doesn't talk. The coaches, they don't talk about anybody that they really, man. If I'm not saying to offer it, but if you were going to offer it, hypothetically speaking, it would be good to hit Elliott's people. But I'm not saying, you know what I'm saying? Like, because he's pretty good. I don't think this guy. I think now we know the coaching staff doesn't do that, right? But I think let's just say I think he knows that maybe there are different ways he knows. I don't think it's by patrolling the recruiting pages. I call me crazy. I just don't think that's how he does it.
I like the picture in my head of Weitzman on whatever recruiting page, just like with a dart going, that guy is my guy.
Right. Yeah, he looks like he can sell some stuff. Right.
Yeah, I mean, okay, that's what I assumed the answer was, but I didn't know if you had some. I don't. Yeah, I mean, the other thing I thought about when that came out was Syracuse obviously has had sanctions put on them not too long ago, and Boeheim's wins taken away, whatever. This kind of public, we're giving a guy $1 million thing kind of screamed like, you one wrong step, NCAA is gonna freaking investigate you. Like, you better watch out. Like, did you think about that at all? Do you think that's something they should worry about?
Well, the NIL is a whole different world, right? So the NCAA, in essence, they're like, hey, you better not do that. That's just how they treat the NIL. Hey, don't do that. And it's like, okay, or what? And we haven't seen the or what yet, right? So and not so many coaches are like, yeah, they're talking about these are the rules, but really it's a suggestion. Is if you're not enforcing it, you're just suggesting that we don't do these things that you deem to be negative. So until you enforce them, here's the $1 million, and this is who I'm giving it to, and that's what it is.
College basketball is just, and football, the Wild West right now.
Yeah, it's wild.
Now, I'm going to stick on it just because I'm super curious about this, and I finally have somebody on this podcast that I can actually ask questions to. Will have the answers. With $1 million on the line, like, is that a lot, or are other teams out there offering $2 million or $3 million or $10 million? Like, where does that is $1 million? Does a recruit see that and say, "Well, nobody else is offering me that"? Like, I got to think about this school, even though they didn't. I didn't visit. They didn't really recruit me that hard. Like, $1 million is way more than I'm getting anywhere else.
Yeah, it's not, and it's a lot of money, a whole lot of money, and that's not. People don't believe the hype. Like, I know, I just talked to a parent last week, and I won't say who, obviously, but very a high-ranked player who was promised not $1 million, but a lot of money, right? So, but it wasn't $1 million.
Yeah.
To your point, it wasn't $1 million. And I was like, "Did you get that money?" And he's like, "No, not even most of it." And so he's like livid about it.
Yeah, I would be too.
So don't believe the clickbait. They're not getting money like that. It's not that.
Okay.
It's not you can say whatever you want. You can say this is the valuation and this is what we deem that ain't true. They're not getting money like that. Some of them are, but it's like more the exception than the rule type thing. They're not getting millions. They're not just out here. What's your wire transfer? It's kind of stop. They're not doing that. It's not. They're not out here winning like that. They're getting money, but they're not out here winning like that. No.
Okay.
And so $1 million would absolute. I would love to know that. Now let me ask you this, because I didn't. I saw the thing about Elliot Cadeau. Was that confirmed?
That was put out by, I believe, Inside the Loud House, which is a Syracuse publication.
Okay.
That was.
I had heard that, but I didn't know if it was confirmed that he would. That's interesting.
Yeah. I also was wondering how that news gets out there. Like, I guess Weitzman leaked it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was also just thinking about, if I was 17 and somebody offered me $1 million, I would have taken it instantly. So, good on Elliot Cadeau for maybe thinking about his future more than I would have at 17. But just looking towards, before we wrap up, just the 2024 class for Syracuse. Still nobody in it. That's fine as of right now. But do you think this 6-man class lasts them that long? Or do you think that 4 of these guys are going to leave either via the portal or going to the draft by the time 2024 rolls around?
It's tough to say, obviously there's a lot more season left. So, like we said earlier, the climate is there. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of things that they can't, players can't bank on, it looks like, it also looks like they have chemistry issues and just miscues on both ends of the floor. And that's all bad. But a lot can change in a month. A lot can change in 2 weeks. Like you can go on a 5-game winning streak and everybody's happy. And that's just the nature of 18 to 22-year-olds, right? Like it's all about where you're at the time. And April's a long way from now. March,
yep.
Late March is a long way from now. So it's tough to say. I wouldn't jump out there and say they're definitely, but a 6-man class, in the climate we're in, God bless you if you can hold on to 6.
Yeah.
With an uncertain team and an uncertain season. So I'll say it like that.
I feel that sentiment. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Jason. I appreciate it as always, and I hope to have you on again soon.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every day, as well as today. For your second listen, check out the brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Hear from big name experts, coaches, and players throughout the basketball landscape. That's Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. I'm Matt Bonaparte. Owen Valentine will be back with me tomorrow, and we will see you then.